All right, before we even get into the nitty-gritty of this video, congratulations to my true love, Brent Casino, on hitting 1,000 subscriptions on your channel. We're all very proud of you, and here's to 1,000 more. I'll post a link to Brent's channel in the description box below. He does daily videos on comics, and I suspect a lot of you who play video games also like comics. So do me a favor, go check him out. Now, before I begin with today's video and really get into kind of this whole article, the idea of a takeover, the idea of a merge, the actual word structure, the actual meaning of the word is just that. Two becomes one. I don't know anybody who honestly thought that Sony forking over billions with an S for the rights to own Bungie would not expect something in return. I think a lot of people get caught up in the console wars and in console parity, and they're doing a tit for tat between what Xbox is doing versus what Sony is doing. But just logically think through this. Why would Sony spend so much money on a company and then do nothing about them? Not have any oversight with them, not have any executive direction over them? That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. And anybody who thought that it would just be status quo, except at the beginning of a Bungie name, you might see the Sony Studios publication splash screen, Sony's Productions, or whatever the hell they do now, right? Is nuts. That's stupid. That's a dumb thought. So it doesn't surprise me. And I did a previous video talking about my interview experience with Bungie and how it was very clear to me the culture was very confused, how I dodged a huge bullet by the layoffs. Well, it seems like that is not quite yet done. There's an article that came out today that we're going to go over in detail, talking a little bit about that. I want to interject with some of my thoughts on the issue as well, but it's pretty safe to say the Bungie that we knew has been long gone for a very long time. The Bungie who didn't seem to kind of find their footing and was doing partnerships, then bought themselves out, now kind of farmed themselves out to Sony. Clearly, they can't get it right on their own. If they could, they wouldn't be constantly trying to get into or out of business deals. They would just exist. So they clearly needed some help. I think Sony probably knew that, probably leaned pretty hard into them. I wouldn't be surprised, and we will never know the true details of this business arrangement. I would not be truly surprised if way back when Sony forked over so much money to the original Destiny creation, I would not be surprised if these deals were already starting to be forged and they've just now reached fruition. Bungie devs say atmosphere is soul-crushing amid layoffs, cuts, and fear of total Sony takeover. A month after the major round of layoffs impacted nearly 100 Bungie employees of 1,200. So it's a little, it's about 10% of the workforce. That's a big cut of people. Those remaining at the Destiny developers say the cuts, as well as other cost-cutting measures, came alongside an apparent scramble by studio leadership to avoid a total Sony takeover. This did not surprise me reading this first sentence. Most likely the terms, without seeing them, again, they're all sealed, we'll never know. Sony probably met with Bungie and said, we're going to give you a ton of money. However, if you don't make us X amount of money or X amount of games or some sort of tangible thing, we are going to basically dissolve your existing board and take over. There is no professional sports team in the history of professional sports teams where you have two starting quarterbacks that are successful. There might be flukes where they have an A and a B quarterback for certain situations, but there's always one leader. There's always one chief financial officer. There's always one chief executive officer, one chief engineer, one voice that everybody falls in line with, which is why this next paragraph is so baffling to me. As it currently stands, Bungie is on paper a fully independent subsidiary of Sony, but its board of directors have been divided since the takeover in July of 2022. Amongst its current members are Sony PlayStation head Herman Hulst, Sony Senior Vice President Eric Lempel, Bungie co-founder Jason Jones, Bungie CTO, which I believe is Chief Technology Officer, Luis Villegas, and Bungie CEO Pete Parsons. The board as a whole is split between Sony and Bungie representatives, and Parson usually serves as the tiebreaker vote. But speaking to IGN under condition of anonymity, multiple current and former Bungie employees described a department meeting that took place shortly after the layoffs, in which leaders hinted that this shared power may not last forever. Again, a house divided against itself cannot stand. If Sony is now the owner of Bungie, how do you think those meetings go in which Sony says it wants Bungie to do something and Bungie wants to do something else? How do you think that goes down? How do you think that do you think Bungie tells Sony no and Sony says, you're right? I don't think so. Now, Sony may negotiate or influence Bungie to make the transition a little bit smoother, but there is no way in God's green earth are you telling the company that just bought you what to do. That's not how business works. Sony, of course, did not respond to IGN's comment. Declaration of dependence. While the exact details of Sony's deal to acquire Bungie remain unknown to the public or the employees, and you know that's why, because they don't want you to know. And like I said, I do think that dates back to the launch of the original Destiny. Sources say they were told by leaders that the current split board structure is contingent on Bungie meeting certain financial goals. If Bungie falls short of certain financial thresholds by too great of an amount, Sony is allowed to dissolve the existing board and take full control of the company. So, again, it's kind of like Sony's giving Bungie control of the company, but not really. Because when push comes to shove, Sony's going to flip the kill switch and Bungie, as you know, it is dissolved. That makes perfect sense. That's exactly what I would expect. This transition was really a gentle way of indoctrinating Bungie into Sony's technology. Clearly, there's some Bungie resistance, like my aforementioned video, where I talk a lot about what my position would have been in trying to incorporate doctrine from Sony into the whole Bungie ecosphere and how that didn't really work out. Right? Okay, so think about it. It's all coming together, isn't it? And with the Destiny 2 expansion, the final shape delayed until the next fiscal year, and Bungie still fully investing heavily on Marathon, which I don't think anybody cares about Marathon. Many employees understand that Bungie is struggling to meet the necessary targets to keep its last vestige of freedom. This, again, just a ruse. This is not real freedom. This is freedom with quotes and clauses and contracts. Such a takeover won't necessarily be shocking given its 2022 acquisition, but it would nonetheless be a stunning development for a company that has historically prided itself on its independence. If the company prided itself on its independence, it would not have entered in numerous partnerships over the years. It wouldn't have. It would have found a way to remain independent. Because again, when you're independent, you are owned by one person. One person makes the decisions, not a board of directors from the enemy. Sony isn't meeting with Xbox to make decisions. Nintendo has a leader who is making the final decision on what does and doesn't make the Zelda game. They're not sitting there debating this. You need to have a command structure. And this is not the case here. So this whole system is flawed from the beginning. It was with this threat looming that Bungie leadership, not Sony, according to Parsons, made the choice to lay off roughly 100 employees last month. So Bungie is probably trying to show Sony that they're making money by cutting overhead, which is basically saying, I'm going to lose weight by cutting off my fat right leg. Yeah, I will lose a lot of weight, but guess what? I will have lost my leg, part of what makes me whole, part of my system. So Bungie is now grasping at straws, trying to probably meet financial quotas. And I would bet you that out of all of this, it always comes down to money because you got to follow the money in these situations. And I'm guessing that Bungie has realized they're not making the cut, so to speak. So the best next thing to do is, hey, we can do it with less. We're going to do some crappy Lean Six Sigma. We're going to bring in some guru champion who's going to cut away at the fat, and we're just going to let a lot of people go, and that's going to help us. How well did that work out for 343 Industries during their creation of Halo Infinite? Spoilers, it didn't work very well. But the cost cutting of Bungie isn't limited to just personnel. Multiple current employees confirmed to IGN that the company has implemented numerous other cost-cutting measures recently, including a studio-wide hiring freeze, reduced travel budgets, elimination of holiday bonuses, keeping its annual Bungie Day virtual, delaying its week-long company pentathlon event into next December, and reducing numerous morale events such as cooking and knitting classes from monthly to quarterly. So I could tell you that it's really funny to me because when I talked with the hiring team at Bungie, they named a lot of these things to me. Even though I would have been a fully remote employee here in Orlando, and the company was not in Orlando, they were like, there's a lot of fun events. We'll fly you out here to meet the team. We'll do team building, both virtual, virtual play dates, where we'll all go play the game together. We'll also fly out and have a lot of fun. Now, the fact that these events are being taken away, honestly, is a drop in the bucket when you really consider how much money Bungie is going to save by reducing the monthly knitting event to quarterly. I mean, you're talking like what, $100 in yarn? Like, that is not a cost-saving event. But it just shows you, one, the person who was leaking this story to IGN is clearly pissed off that this is even worthy of being reported on. But two, the desperation that Bungie is willing to go to at this point to meet that bottom line. A hiring freeze in of itself is insanely deadly. A company cannot evolve and expand. You always need to be gathering new talent because your existing talent slowly fades away. And you take all that, what we call tribal knowledge, with you. When I leave the company, I take it with me unless I have somebody to train up behind me. So that is very dangerous. That is an incredibly suicidal, short-term thought process. As the studio evolves and moves into the next generation and the next iteration of games, you absolutely need to backfill your numbers. When you let 100 people go and downsize, that takes the same amount of work and spreads it across even more people. What it also does is it makes those existing people probably a little more burnt out. And people are going to be doing multiple jobs that they did not do before. Obviously, you're not going to lay people off and immediately turn around and hire new ones. That's just silly. Although I've seen it done before, and I'm looking at you, Lockheed Martin. I've seen this done before, but I'll tell you that it's usually a short-term layoff, hiring lower-ranked people, more entry-level employees. You're not getting rid of things by attrition, and that's what Bungie has done here. They're not hiring, and they're letting people go. So they are now a stagnant company. If I'm Sony and I just paid billions with an S for the rights to Bungie, and I hear that they're laying people off and they're not hiring new people, guess what they're not doing? They're not evolving with every other company around them, and I'm starting to get worried. Bungie is also pausing or fully ending benefits like annual employee compensation adjustments to meet market rates, its new hire lunch program, employee donation matching. Come on, new employees, let's go march. Matching, its peer recognition program, and gift cards for employee birthdays. And yearly studio performance bonuses this year will only be the contractually obligated 80% minimum above being 100% for good performance several years previous running. Now, they had told me when I was going to hire, besides the fact that I'd be making a stupid amount of money, they did tell me that my raise would be dependent directly on the performance of Destiny 2. Clearly, Destiny 2 did not perform well, hence the raises were cut. But again, this is a pretty stagnant removal of things. I mean, they're basically going down the laundry list and taking away everything that made the company fun. I'm really interested in how much money they saved on the peer recognition program. We have one of those at work. It's a website where you type in, "Hey, Joe Blow, thanks for helping out in the meeting," and you send it. It costs you $0.00, unless there was some sort of financial incentive for actually recognizing employees, like you'd send them a gift card or you'd send them a replica Galahorn or something. Maybe that makes a little more sense. I don't know. But again, you're just getting hit across the board. This is just yet another thing, death by 1,000 cuts. Not only do you have fear of actual layoffs, they're taking every other thing that's fun about the company and they're taking it away from you. Among the recent layoffs, which has resulted in a massive decay in morale within the company, according to IGN sources, one of whom told us that the mood in the studio has been soul-crushing over the last month, and it doesn't sound like management is making any significant efforts towards improving the atmosphere either. According to those still at the company, employee frustration and sadness in the days and weeks following the layoffs was met with a surprising amount of indifference or even outright flippancy or hostility from management. That is not a good sign. Several people spoke to us, told us that the leaders had reiterated across multiple meetings that they could not guarantee there would be more layoffs, with specifically confirming previous reports that Chief People Officer Holly Barbacovi outright stated that layoffs were a lever that the company would pull again. So you work for a company, you're on death's door from being completely hostilely taken over, if you want to even think of it as hostile takeover. That was already done when the deal was signed. People are getting laid off. You're not getting your little fun bonuses. How hard are you going to work? And how hard are you looking for another job? And by the way, you're now doing 3 people's job or 2 people's job because they laid a bunch of people off. Doesn't look good. We know we need the final shape to do well, and the feeling at the studio is that if we don't do it, we're definitely looking at more layoffs. No shit, Sherlock. Others said they were rebuffed repeatedly and discouraged from even discussing the layoffs whenever they tried to ask questions. Employees in one department recalled a post-layoffs question and answer session where department heads was asked if leadership taking salary cuts to prevent layoffs had been considered, and the only response that Bungie was that they're not that type of company. What's more, we spoke to sources pointing out that many of the Bungie employees who were laid off were beloved community leaders within the studio, including many who had spearheaded employee inclusion and support efforts. Several people spoke and expressed anger at the layoff of Bungie General Counsel Dan McGowan, who played a key role in Bungie winning a historic suit against the player who harassed the Bungie developer. Others laid off included a noticeable number of members at Bungie's DE&I clubs. I'm not sure what DE&I is. Including co-heads of Pride at Bungie, Women at Bungie, Accessibility at Bungie. And when all these are combined with the recent resource cuts, the dismissals have led to fears that clubs might be shut down. Again, taking things away. Get back to work. We're not going to play childish games. You're not going to go knit. You're not going to go have fun. You're going to get back to work. Side note, who gets paid to knit at work? You tell me, leave that in the comments below, because I don't. We can take up to, I believe, 2 hours a week for working out, for like mental health, I think. But if I asked the colonel if I could skip his meeting to go hit the weights, he would probably punch me in the throat. When combined with the other recent resource cuts, these dismissals have led to fears that clubs might be shut down. While researching this article, IGN noted that the public news articles announcing Women at Bungie and Accessibility at Bungie on its official blog were no longer accessible, although it's unclear exactly why that happened or if it's just unintentional. Bungie is eroding. Other anxious sources discussed with us that many of the reductions made at Bungie were recently part of a broader move towards outsourcing. There you go. Follow the money. I was just going to get into that. Multiple individuals across various departments told us they've heard discussions within their teams of plans to increase outsourcing before, both, and in the wake of layoffs. One team where those discussions have already become a reality is in quality assurance. Outsourcing quality assurance is an extremely common practice in industry-wide. Bungie historically has also enlisted an army of in-house embedded QA testers. It's a setup studio that has prided itself on years, but now the studio is afraid that the strategy is on its way out. So you have outsourcing going on now. That is very, very, very dangerous. And what does that mean? What does outsourcing mean? That means you're going to do whatever it takes to get it done the cheapest way possible. And that means, just like what happened at 343 Industries, you take all that knowledge and all the people who become intimate with the code, intimate with the process, the configuration manage, the software data libraries, the repositories, everything that is involved in creating a product. You outsource it and you will get it done. You will hire quality people, and quality people will absolutely take temp jobs making significant amount of money for 3 to 6 to 9 month contracts. And then when the contract is done, they're gone and you're left with a product that you cannot maintain. I'm looking at you, 3-4 Industries. I know you pulled this shit on us because you said you couldn't figure out how to implement changes in your own UI. Because you didn't have the right people to change the GUI, which is why there were so many bugs in the game, because you hired people to do it and then you let them go. None of this spells any level of success for Bungie. It is of no surprise to me or anybody who is involved in any sort of business that Sony is absolutely absorbing this. I guess I will leave you with this final question. What exactly is Sony actually going to absorb at this point? A bunch of pissed off employees who can't knit anymore during their company hours, aren't getting recognized, getting paid significantly less than they did before, and probably implementing policies and procedures that weren't properly explained to them. Hint, hint, the job I was going to do. So you have a lot of turmoil right now. It doesn't look good. It's almost as if this acquisition, maybe Sony might regret a little bit buying Bungie. Maybe this wasn't a good move. How much of this was Sony aware of? And how much can Sony do damage control to fix this? How much can they integrate the existing Sony development teams that make quality products that generally seem to be happy into a very flailing Bungie studio? That's a really good question, and it's going to take a lot of really smart people to figure that answer out. But they better start soon, because their value in this company is hemorrhaging at a nearly exponential rate at this point, and it doesn't look good. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave your comments below. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.